Gabe.
Present.
Councillor Harris.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
Councillor Nowak. Councillor Verbanovic.
Present.
Councillor Wolf.
Present.
Councillor Salonen.
Present.
Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Craig.
Present.
And Councillor Liggett.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
And Councillor Erb sends his regrets. I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, and the Channotton peoples. In doing this, I want to reflect on what it means to be doing important community work like we are engaging in collectively today, and also my own individual relationship to this land. As a settler, one of the most important aspects of my individual journey towards truth and reconciliation has been to listen. And I am continually grateful to a community that continues to share their stories and their concerns with me. As well as chair of the region, I know that I carry a large responsibility to ensure that it is not just myself as an individual listening and acting, but that as a government we are listening and creating action within our community. I'm offering this acknowledgement as one of many actions I personally and the region largely is taking on our journey to reconciliation. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. Colleagues, we have a very packed agenda today, so I will make my opening comments brief. This Saturday marks Overdose Awareness Day, and for many, Overdose Awareness Day is every single day. We've lost too many people to drug poisoning in Waterloo region, people who are loved, cared for, and are part of our community. That is evident by the crowd who has joined us here tonight. We hear you. We are your partner, and we are navigating this toxic drug crisis together. Moving forward, we affirm our commitment to working with those with lived and living experience and to make more services and supports available in our community. No one should have to navigate this alone. I want to thank the many councillors who traveled to Ottawa the last week to attend the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. I left feeling that our voices were heard. There is an opportunity for partnership, and we will continue to raise the very real issues that are facing our community. Colleagues, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest under the Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we have no presentations, there are no petitions, we have delegations. We will now proceed to delegations as listed on the agenda, and there is one addition. Sarah Escobar will be joining as a delegation because we had one previous delegation drop off. I'd like to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. For those who are joining us in person, please proceed to the podium when you are called upon to speak. For those who are joining us electronically, please leave your voice, camera turned off, and your microphone audio muted until you are called upon to speak. Delegations who are registered before the deadline will have 5 minutes. Delegations who registered after the deadline will have 3 minutes. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in immediate removal from the meeting. Interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations. Derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others. Turning your camera on at inappropriate times. Hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder to the delegations, please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and the ideas shared with us from our community members. And a quick reminder to members of the audience, you're asked to maintain order. This means you will not address the committee without the permission of the chair, interrupt anyone, disrupt the meeting with unreasonable noise or vocal expressions such as applause, booing, or cheering, and display signs or posters. So our first delegation is, hang on. My apologies. Ren Mababe, please come forward. You have 5 minutes. Welcome. Thank you. That clears things up because I had Terry Lynn Weaver.
Yes. So T couldn't be here today because she's a person without a home. So when we can't find her, there's nowhere to go to, sort of check in on her. She doesn't have a phone. So when we want to call her, we really can't. And that's a big part of why we had asked her to come and speak, because she spends a lot of her time at the 100 Vic encampment. I'm a member of Fight Back, and as some of you may know, we do a lot of work at the encampment, which is how we know that the encampment is literally hell on earth. There are rats. The rats get into people's tents and crawl on their faces while they're sleeping. They have no lights because the region has turned the street lights off. So a lot of women who were staying at the women's shelter downtown and no longer have access to that shelter and are now staying at 100 Vic are experiencing sexual assaults, which is something that's known to administrative staff, especially administrative staff Chris McAvoy. This is an issue that's been known about since February, and the region has done nothing to improve the safety or the conditions at 100 Victoria, including working on housing, working on building new shelter beds. All we've had are a loss of shelter beds. And now we're facing, as a community, a loss of our CTS. Losing this is going to be so monumentally disastrous. In the last 2 weeks, we've already had a woman who should have been staying at the women's shelter that was closed, overdose and pass away alone in a tent, only for her body to be recovered by random other unhoused people who then have to deal with that now for the rest of their life. These things could be prevented with adequate services if we actually push back and try to expand CTS hours and CTS possibilities instead of limiting the scope, limiting the ability. And that means you guys have to actually do it. I noticed at the beginning, your opening speech, there was a lot of really beautiful words about how we're partners and how we really need to try and work together. But the reality is that that's not what it looks like in the community. The funding that we're putting towards stuff right now is going towards hiring another manager of housing services that we can pay $150,000 a year. While this tent I got out of a random person's car, our community had to buy this tent. I'm sure so many people in this room have donated money to buy tents, to buy people shoes, to get people water, to help hook people up with the life-saving essential services, that the region, it has a responsibility as the service manager of shelter services to provide. So the reality is that the unhoused community, which is hugely affected and will be hugely affected by the loss and closure of CTS, are falling through the cracks. The region is not taking care of these issues. The region is not putting a pittance amount of money towards supporting young women getting sexually assaulted in the middle of the night in encampments, where you knew about the women's shelter closing for a year, and now we're getting 20 shelter beds in Cambridge. Like, the reality of this situation is that we can say we're partners. We can say that, you really care about being on Indigenous land and you really care about working together with us, but that is not the reality of living in this community. That is simply not real. It's just beautiful words. What we need is for you guys to care about our most vulnerable community members, about our unhoused neighbors, about our friends and family with substance use issues. You have to actually care and actually push back, actually do something for real. And I think all of these people, like, we're seeing a lot of farmers, there's a lot of people really upset about all the nothing that's getting done right now. And I think that this room should be a display. We're paying attention. We're watching. We need change. We don't need beautiful platitudes and metaphors. We need actual action now. We need for the region of Waterloo to push back against Doug Ford, to push back against CTS stuff, to actually put funding into drugs, to actually put resources into the housing crisis, into the cost of living crisis, to stop paying police raises every year. These are
Tara
really,
Lynn, can you sum up, please?
yeah, in my last minute. I'll do
I
that.
also want to caution you, mentioning a regional staff by name is absolutely inappropriate.
Oh, okay, sorry, I just thought that there should be some accountability, but again, we don't have any accountability.
We're the accountability here. We're the elected representatives. So
Okay,
you're
well, I
talking to
was
the right
told
group.
that we would get $1,200 to put safety lights up at 100 Vic and then ghosted. It's really important to me that women who should be in shelter beds don't get sexually assaulted in the night. It's really important to me that women who should be in shelter beds have access to the harm reduction equipment that will save their lives, the staff and services that will save their lives. You don't have to know these women. I know these women. I see their faces. I know them when they pass away. I hear their stories of being sexually assaulted. So the reality of this situation is, sorry for mentioning somebody's name. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to give us money to put up safety lights? Are you going to make a commitment to push back against the CTS stuff?
So Tara Lynn, is that your summation?
My name is Ren, as you've been told several times.
Okay, Ren. Again, I'm going to remind the gallery, no clapping. Somebody back there is doing jazz hands. That's fine. It's not disruptive. Colleen, Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair Redmond. Ren, thank you for coming in and speaking and giving some insight into what you and many others are navigating. I just have a question for clarification about the lights. Like, when you said that there were no lights, can you just expand on that? And then I also have a question and maybe this is for staff after, just if you are part of our co-creators, the working group that the region has with our plan to end chronic homelessness. So just those two questions.
For sure. So there are street lights on Victoria, but at the very beginning of that encampment's existence, I guess people had tapped them for electricity. And so the response by the region was to completely shut them off and not replace them in any regard. So there are no street lights or any other lights that specifically light up 100 Vic as an encampment. I discussed with staff, administrative staff, a plan to get motion sensor solar lights and put them up in the areas that women were most afraid of, specifically that back wall where the train tracks are, because people come and go back there and they can get through the fences. We had developed a plan, and I had been told by admin staff that we would be getting that money, and then he just completely ghosted me and nothing came of that. In terms of the working group, for sure, yeah, I'm involved in the PESH stuff, but this was that's how I met these administrative people, but this was like a separate issue where we had been working together to try and build some support at 100 Vic.
And then, thank you, just one other question, Chair Redmond. In terms of the CTS, just how detrimental is that from the work that you were doing and the people you were supporting?
It's going to cost, it's going to cost lives, so many lives. The reality of the situation is that folks are going to use whether there's a safe space or not, and we need trained staff to be able to support them. There are significant benefits to the health of not just Narcaning people over and over. That's going to create an issue. And the reality is folks are dying, and if there's nobody watching, they won't come back. And that's what we're seeing when there isn't any supervision, because folks are just doing their drugs in their tent by themselves. If we had a 24-hour CTS, Mel, who I referenced, would still be alive. Yeah, she would not be dead, so thank you.
Thank you, Ren. Next delegation is Amy Hertel, founder of River Access Point Safety Movement. Welcome, Amy. You have the podium and you have the floor and 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Amy Hartel. I've provided a slide deck that should be in your package. I'm here representing a number of concerned citizens and recreational users of the local waterways. We'd like to advocate for upgrading signage along the riverbanks at low-head dams, particularly at the Hidden Valley Weir, which is owned by the Waterloo region, or the region of Waterloo. Next slide. On Saturday, this presentation outlines immediate, short, and long-term goals. However, today the focus is just going to be on that immediate upgrading of signage around the weir. Next slide. On Saturday, July 13th, 2 women drowned while floating down the Grand River in Kitchener. Unaware of the dangers ahead, they were not able to navigate a low-head dam and lost their lives. Several factors contributed to that accident. However, inadequate signage and information along the river and at launch sites.
Amy, sorry to interrupt. Is this the slide you want to be on or advance? Okay.
Yep, that's the one. The inadequate signage and information along the river and at launch sites played a significant role. Next slide. So what is a low-head dam? A low-head dam is extremely deceptive. Although they might not appear hazardous, they can cause fatalities no matter the safety equipment. From an upstream point of view, they are nearly invisible. This makes it critical to heed warnings like signs or buoys, as people may not realize they are in danger until they're very close to the dam, at which point it might be too late to avoid being caught by the current. Next slide. The Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources sets out recommendations regarding public safety around dams and weir. The document emphasizes that dam owners are responsible for ensuring the safe operation and maintenance of their dams, and this includes implementing appropriate public safety measures such as signage and other safety strategies. Next slide. This point highlights the importance of using signage to inform the public about hazards near the dam. I provided a picture there of the current signage at the weir. You can see, you can't really see much, sorry it's so small there, but you can note that there's kind of an infinity pool effect there, and you also can't hear the water because the Highway 8 bridge is just behind there. Next slide. The Ministry of Natural Resources also details key elements in making signage effective for public safety around dams. So one, signs should be brief and easy to understand. The current signs mention a weir, not a dam, and many people don't know what a weir is. 2, consistency. So the signage at the Hidden Valley Weir is not consistent with the signage in the ministry's recommendations or with the dams owned by the GRCA. 3, proper placement. There is signs located at 1,000 meters, 100 meters, and at the weir and portage area, but they are broken, blocked, and very small. That leads to number 4, regular inspection and maintenance. So as we see in this provided picture, the signage at the 1,000-meter mark is broken, and then that smaller one is covering the larger one. And the larger one is the only spot on the river that points river users to the left side of the river for the portage. And 5, appropriate text size. So the sign at 100 meter warns of the danger and indicates a weir ahead. But the signage is small in comparison to the width of the river at that point, and it's not, you can't read it from the right side of the river. So if you're on the left side, you'd be able to see that, but on the right side of the river, it's very difficult to see. Next slide. So this is the sign there. It's the only one that's not damaged or covered.
Amy, you've got 1 minute
by
left.
Vegetation. Okay. Next slide. We're just going to skip that one and then go to the next slide, and this is where I will end. The focus on the urgent and immediate need for sign maintenance and the regulation at the Hidden Valley Weir. The GRCA does an exceptional job at signage around their dams. These are some examples in the picture here. We encourage the council to show a sense of urgency on the enhancement of the safety at the Hidden Valley Weir location and take immediate action to update and maintain current signage. We would also encourage the council to consider the addition of buoys, larger portage signage, and new danger signs. It's also important to note that this is not the first delegation to stand before you with this request. In 2020, another concerned citizen attempted to approach the GRCA GRCA and the region about this site, stating that one day someone would lose their life there. Her concerns went unacted upon, and here we are. In an earlier response, a representative from the region mentioned a report that staff were conducting. We have not heard any more about this report. We're requesting transparency on how the report is being conducted, who is conducting the report, when the report will be concluded, and if its findings will be made and released to the public.
Amy, thank you very much. I see no questions, but thank you for coming to delegate. It's an important issue.
Sorry,
So,
I was just.
Councillor Deutschmann.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for coming in and presenting that information. I find that very interesting. So just to clarify, this is the region's responsibility and these signs in this area then, is that?
Well, it's been told to me that the region owns the dam. So the signage around the dam is the dam owner's responsibility. I've had a lot of communication, official communication with the GRCA, and they have said that their dams are maintained, their signage is maintained, and that this is not their dam.
Okay, thanks. So maybe we can get a report with respect to this at some point, or is one coming? I don't know. Or we have one already?
We'll investigate, and Amy will let you know when that report's coming forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Ravanovich. Okay, thank you. The next delegation is Artem Klimovich from Woolwich. Artem, welcome. You have the floor, and you have 5 minutes. Whenever you'd like to begin.
I already started. I just waited for 10 seconds, keeping silence, only because I've been waiting for a response.
Is the mic on, Artem?
It's green. Okay,
Okay.
maybe I'm too. It's discriminating me. It's too low. Okay. So, Madam Chair, councillors, and dear residents, I'm here not because I have nothing better to do this evening and not out of sense of personal obligation to be an active resident. I'm here because of the arrogance and ignorance, the arrogance with which residents are treated and the ignorance that is allowed to persist. So, dear councillors, those of you who ignored my request from back March 29, I want to say, I'm not going to read my mail again here. I know that you all received it and read it. I'm only here to tell you several things. Number one, if so-called COVID-19 pandemic taught us anything, it is that none of you is essential. In fact, neither 99% of other professions. Setting aside the toilet paper flash mobs, the only essential people are the farmers who grow the food that when it hits supermarkets' shelves gets snatched up by frenzied crowds. Number two, the most popular place in Waterloo region is St. Jacob's Farmers Market. If there are no farms, there is no market, and it's safe to say that tourism as an industry will vanish from our region. Number three, it takes at least 500 years to form 1 inch of topsoil. The average Ontario farmland is 6 to 12 inches of topsoil. If we multiply 6 inches by 500 years, we get 3,000 years. This is one in human history opportunity versus so-called one-in-generation investment opportunity. Number four, it took nature 3,000 years to create topsoil. It took generations of Wilmot farmers to work the soil and then to grow corn. It took you some minutes to waste the crop. Your action, hiring a contractor to plow the farmland, proves that you were aware of the crop. This is hypocrisy. In a time when, according to Canada Helps 2024 report, 1 in 5 Canadians was using charitable services to meet essential needs in 2023. Number five, it is estimated the corn was worth $160,000 at a price of $5 per bushel. A cooked cob goes for $5. So if your focus was truly on prosperity of our region, that corn could have been donated or sold at our supermarkets, yielding several times the estimated profit. You can say it's peanuts. I call it a sin. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay, this one. No, go back one more. Yes. On the left, you see a cut from prime farmland soil. On the right, you see what I dug out and pulled from my backyard to plant a couple of trees. There on the right is a 4 cubic yard bin. I spent 2 months of weekdays, evenings, and entire weekends digging and screening soil. Then I spent hundreds of dollars to purchase mediocre quality topsoil, and after that, I spent hundreds more to dispose of the rocks. This is a vicious cycle happening in our region. We buy properties on land from which builders carefully remove all topsoil that we must later buy back. This builder's practice must be eliminated. And next slide again. Thank you. In the center is my former property, where I planted and grew trees, berry bushes, and other plants. On the left is my former neighbor's property, where he planted concrete. I'm seeing more and more concrete stones or tiles covering back and front yards in our region. Concrete, any kind of stones, accumulate summer heat and drive ambient temperature up by as much as 6 degrees in residential comparing to rural areas. It negatively affects stormwater management too. This conversion must be banned.
Artem, you have 1 minute left.
Moving forward, okay. So if you may want to consider fining the land abusers and ordering reversal of existing conversions. To summarize everything I've said and offer some solutions. The competitive advantage of Waterloo region is innovation education, as well as its rural landscape. Solution number 1, invest in innovation to harvest companies like OpenAI that was founded by 5 people and is estimated to be worth more than an entire Waterloo region. Solution number 2, leave farmlands and farmers alone. As there are no 2 identical people, there are no 2 identical regions. Everyone has unique traits, so not every region should be industrialized. And last but not the least, being a councillor means to bear a duty to represent interests and concerns of your constituents, listening to our views and advocating on our behalf. You are not given the right to pursue other agendas. The people are saying no to the industrial site in Wilmot. Accept it or step down.
Artem, if you could sum up. Thank you very much. I see no questions, so thank you very much for coming in to delegate.
My pleasure.
The next. Again, I'm going to caution you, please stop clapping. I see jazz hands. Jazz hands are fine. They're not disturbing anybody. Mark Reeser, Vice President, Waterloo Federation of Agriculture. Mark, welcome, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Reeser. I'm a farmer from Wilmot Township, and I'm here tonight in my capacity as Vice President of the Waterloo Federation. We're here tonight to offer our support to Councillor Solonen and to ensure that her motion to ensure that the willful destruction of a food crop never occurs again in Waterloo Region. The tax dollars spent to compensate the farmer, shred and plow under the 160 acres of corn, coupled with the foregone income of the crop, had it been left to mature and sold, approach $500,000. Consider what a donation of $500,000 to the food bank would have done to alleviate food insecurity in Waterloo Region, or a donation of $500,000 to the group that is here tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Dealing with and as tragic as the loss of 160 acres of corn is, consider how much worse is the permanent loss of food production on 770 acres forever. We live in a special place here in Waterloo Region and in southern Ontario. Our pleasant climate, moderated by 3 Great Lakes, reliable rainfall, warm summers, fertile soils, and world-class farmers allow us to grow a longer list of fruits, vegetables, grains, and livestock than any other jurisdiction in North America, with the exception of California, which has to get its water from somewhere else. Farmland is a non-renewable natural resource. When it's paved over, it is destroyed forever. If you look after it and protect it, it becomes a perpetual resource in that it can produce food forever. In 1973, when Waterloo became a region, we agreed that we would endeavor to build a world-class, dynamic, visionary, innovative urban community. And surrounding that would be an equally dynamic, visionary, and innovative agricultural landscape. We were visionary leaders, and we built it. We invented the countryside line to delineate urban and rural and protect agriculture. We recognized the importance of clean water long before Walkerton, and we enacted policy to protect it. We enacted the environmentally sensitive landscape designation to protect the integrity of major tributaries of the Grand River. We applied the protected countryside designation to protect our aquifer. We built an effective and efficient public transit system not found in any comparably sized city in North America to enable intensification to protect agriculture. We passed a unique official plan that included specific measures to increase densities and intensify, and we protected farmland. And it has worked. In Waterloo, we lead. The current clandestine, secretive attempt to procure industrial land in Wilmot, the intentional destruction of 160 acres of corn, and the funding of a consultant to help identify suitable land who never once contacted anyone in agriculture is not us. It's not Waterloo. Last year, agriculture and food contributed $51 billion to Ontario's GDP. It employed 11% of our workforce, and it generated $26 billion in exports. Farmland is indeed a strategic resource that benefits everyone in Ontario, yet at the current rate of loss,
Mark, you've
one
got
half of it
one
will
minute left.
disappear, thank you, by 2050, 25 years from now. Farmers in Waterloo have never said no to the need for housing or employment lands because we all need a place to live and work. Instead, we've always participated in a process, a transparent, official plan process that respects our farmland, our ability to grow food, and the ability of everyone to express their opinions and have a stake in the final decision. In conclusion, farmers in Waterloo region ask you to unanimously support Councillor Solinen's motion. It's a no-brainer. Lead. Take the Wilmot Prime Farmland Procurement Plan off the table and reinstate and guarantee our commitment to a firm countryside line. Initiate a public process to develop criteria for the location of new employment lands. Initiate a public process to identify a selection of alternative sites. Employ an open and transparent process that prioritizes public consultation to select a possible site. Do all of this through our official plan. You have been elected by us, the people of this great region, to be visionary leaders. Don't be bullied by those with money or those in seats of power in this province. We will remember that you took a risk to protect farmland, and we, our children, and all that come after us for 7 generations or more will thank you for your vision. We implore you, lead.
Thanks, Mark. You're out of time. Again, I sincerely want to thank the people that aren't standing up hooting and clapping. It's very much appreciated. Mark, we actually have a question if you want to come back.
Excuse me, I didn't expect a question. I thought it was clear.
Yeah. Mark, you are always very articulate. Councillor Salonen has a question.
It wasn't going to be a question, but I suppose I will frame it. May I express my thank you for coming tonight and for delegating, as well as for the Federation's support behind my motion. And always great to see Wilmot residents here, whether they're speaking like yourself or sitting out in the audience. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon.
See, it wasn't a tough question, Mark.
No, thank you.
Our next delegate is Delinda Reese from Waterloo. Delinda, if you're here, The floor is yours. You have 5 minutes. Welcome.
I'm so glad I'm not a politician. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I also want to thank the literal groundswell of people who have actively participated in this particular effort. I am Delinda Reese, a Waterloo resident who has friends, colleagues, family, and grandchildren in the region. I care intimately about our future growth and prosperity. I am also a retired U.S. integrative medicine medical doctor and have a master's in spiritual care and psychotherapy from Martin Luther University College here at Laurier. My intention with this delegation is to bring each of you 16 delegates a gift of liquid gold, that is local honey, to illustrate the sweetness that is possible only because of a myriad of healthy relationships, and to ask you to honor these life-nurturing relationships by protecting what is precious to us, by protecting our farmland. This honey is only possible because of the intricate symbiotic relationships between the sun, the soil, the water, the plants, the bees, and other life forms on the farmland. And also because of the committed, hardworking farmers who are part of and care for a small corner of the magnificent web of life that is found on the farm. True growth and prosperity arise naturally from governance systems that understand and profoundly respect and that work with nature to nurture life, relationships, and well-being. Systems that attempt to control, cajole, or otherwise fit life into data points or imposed ideologies, even if said to be doing so for economic growth and prosperity or for the greater good, will inevitably cause harm and are doomed to fail in the long run. Farmers who have a relationship with their land and the indigenous peoples who live in harmony with the earth don't need academic degrees to know this truth. In a time of increasing food insecurity, we need farmland and farmers more than ever. Let's protect our farmland. I, like many of us in the Waterloo region, believed that the official Waterloo Region Growth Plan, approved by the Council in 2022, recognized hard boundaries and protected farmland, at least through 2051. But apparently a single phrase inside that 2022 document accommodates the land for a mega site and essentially negates or nullifies the promised protection of farmland. Those of us who are not politicians and are not privy to what goes on behind closed doors can see ethical injustices and can feel betrayed by the very councils that are meant to represent us. My numerous efforts to learn information and start a dialogue on the land assembly issues have been repeatedly frustrated. Mr. Harris's office made it clear that the land assembly of Wilmot farmland has been deemed a regional issue, not a provincial one. My communication to Premier Ford's office are automatically acknowledged and is said to have been forwarded to appropriate ministries. But there has been no response to my multiple further inquiries requesting information about which ministries and which specific people in those ministries are involved with land assembly concerns. Since land assembly is deemed a regional issue, it appears that the ball is in your court. Whether or not you were on the council that approved the 2022 Waterloo Region Growth Plan and knowingly or unknowingly passed a plan that essentially misled your constituents, you, the current Waterloo Region Council, may be the only ones who can address the problem. And perhaps one place to begin to regain trust is to meet with farmers and those that are most directly impacted, acknowledge their very legitimate concerns, and genuinely engage their questions.
Delinda, you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. And be open to insights and suggestions. Future growth and prosperity starts here and now with the relationships we have and nurture. We, the people of Waterloo Region, farmers and otherwise, our children are the discounted stakeholders who will bear the brunt of decisions and actions. We are not naive. Mega site owners or corporations care about profits, not about the extractive costs or collateral damage of their projects. Please let us help you. Please let our lived experience and wisdom help guide you as together we build a prosperous future in harmony with nature and committed to community, a future that we are proud to pass on to our children and our children's children. One further thought, I noticed the land acknowledgement with which you opened this meeting. I can't help but wonder what life would be like now if centuries ago we had loved the land and respected the people on it. We cannot change the past, but maybe we can help heal it by loving, respecting, caring for, and protecting both the land and the inhabitants.
Thank you very much, Delinda. You can't see it, but you had lots of jazz hands behind you.
I'm sorry?
There were many people who were being very respectful, but giving you jazz hands behind you. So thank you very much. I have no questions. Thank you for delegating. The next
can I ask
delegation is Nina Deeb from Kitchener. Nina? Welcome. You have the floor, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Nina Deeb. I have delegated to the region before, but I've never felt the need to show up. I'm not a farmer, but I eat food. I need food. I also need water. Without water, I will die, and with too much water, I will also die. Same with food. Water management, land management, food management. These are all connected. It's very important that we manage our resources. It's very important that we grow responsibly. We would like to grow. We're looking to prosper. This is something that we share. But we'd like to protect what we have, and we'd like to build things that will benefit us for the many, many generations to come. We have to protect our water sources, we have to protect our food sources, and we have to build, but we have to build in the right places. On my way here today, I drove by a very long lineup of unemployed young people at a job fair. And I'm driving here, and we're looking for employment lands. We're looking for so many uses, but they all have to be respectful of each other. Because if we lose our water sources, if we lose our food sources, the loss is, we cannot make those losses up. Once we pave over the lands, in the last few months, we have seen the downpours. My street turned to a river for the first time that I have ever seen this. I actually couldn't leave my street. The storm sewers were overflowing, and the region showed up to start pumping and to force water into the stormwater management pond behind me. This is all in relation to how we are developing. We have to be respectful. I thank you for having me here today. It was short notice. I would like to acknowledge that today is Overdose Action Day, in solidarity with the other delegations that are here this evening that will have to return in September to delegate. This is something that is also important to me in how we treat the citizens, our most vulnerable citizens. When I hear that there are women in my community that are being sexually assaulted over something so simple like not having lights on, we can afford to turn the lights on. We should be turning these lights on. It's very, very disheartening for me to hear something like that. I literally sat there and I just wanted to jump out of my chair to think, we're not turning the lights on. We're allowing this dangerous situation for people that are living unhoused. We can afford this. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nina, very much. The next delegation, I see no questions. Nina, thanks for coming. Jennifer Fenning. Jen, you're up next. You have 5 minutes and you have the floor.
Good evening. I'm Jen Fenning. I know a number of you around this circle. I'm a farmer and a mother of farmers in Wilmot Township. I'm also the president of the National Farmers Union. My sons are descended from over 400 years of farmers recorded in the Fenning family Bible. Our family is fully dedicated to farming and has been for I don't know how many generations that makes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. While I'm always happy to see you as people, I'm not really happy to be here to talk about this, because I'd be so much happier to be talking to you about the many, many ways that we can grow productively and positively as a community. I support the resolution that our mayor has brought forward, but it doesn't go far enough. What we need is an immediate, full stop on this and all boundary expansions. In thinking about what I was going to say tonight, I read through the strategic plan. It's titled Growing with Care. What's happening in Wilmot really doesn't fit that title, not at all. There's a lot of great stuff in this document. It's fantastic. I'm really happy that this document is supposed to be a leading document for our community. And there are a couple of specific points I wanted to call to your attention that are relevant to this issue. The vision says Waterloo Region is a compassionate community that cares for all people, stewards the land for future generations, and where everyone has the opportunity to live a good life. That phrase, steward the land for future generations, is so important. Once we pave over farmland, the soil that made it productive is gone forever. Scientific reports on soil will tell you, and one of the other delegations tonight mentioned this as well, that soil can take 500 to 1,000 years to create just 1 inch. The soil we have here has taken millennia to create. How can we so carelessly destroy it? This is not good stewardship of the land for our future generations. The strategic plan also identifies climate-aligned growth as a key priority. In an era where climate change impacts are already being keenly felt not only in our community but across the country and around the globe, following this identified key priority should lead to better protections for farmland, not the destruction of it, not the destruction of vast swaths of it. That priority also talks about using a climate adaptation lens to reimagine infrastructure, land, and services for growth. Again, the actions taken in this land assembly are clearly not in line with that stated objective. Nor do they meet the third point that talks about working alongside Indigenous communities and community partners to protect, not plow down, the region's natural environment, biodiversity, trees, and water. This resolution, while unfortunately necessary, doesn't address enough of the issue here. We need a complete inventory of our farmland in our region. How much land is zoned agricultural, but is not farmland? How much land is zoned agricultural today and being farmed, but is owned by investors or developers just waiting for the right time to develop? We need answers to these questions before allowing any further farmland to be paved over. Take a SWOT analysis of our food system. What do we grow? Where does our food come from? How is that supply threatened or strengthened? Then we can develop a plan to ensure food security for future generations and truly steward our land well for those future generations. Right now, decisions...
Jen, I apologize for the interruption. Nigel, we can't tape, so I'm going to ask you to stop taping her. You're not taping? Okay. Go ahead, Jen, sorry.
I'm almost done. Right now, decisions are being made with no evident regard for soil or farmland. Roads, electrical supply, and sewage, these are all important. But we must also factor in whether the land is capable of growing food. If it is, it should be immediately removed from consideration for such developments as this. Thank you again for your time tonight.
Thanks, Jen. And actually, we have one question. Councillor Salonen.
Like with Mark, it's not a question. Just thank you very much, Jen, for coming, for supporting my motion. And I really appreciate always seeing Wilmot residents here. So thank you for your words.
Thanks.
The last delegation is Sarah Escobar.
Chair,
Sarah, you have 3 minutes. The floor is yours.
Chair, I had actually a question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Jen, do you want to come back?
It's actually a question more for sorry, it is a question for Jen. It's for Jen.
Jen, come on back.
Get
Councillor
my
McCabe.
steps in.
Thank you for coming in, and thank you through you, Chair. You were asking about whether we have detailed how much land we have within the region that's been designated for agriculture. Is that what you're asking for?
Not exactly. What I'm asking for, so when we drive around, most of us are driving around, we see farmland. We don't know who owns it, we don't know who's farming it, and we don't know what the status is of as far as what that ownership intends to do with it. So when we have investors and developers that own land, but it's being farmed to the average person and most staff or elected people, it just looks like farmland, and it's zoned as agricultural. But there isn't any, sorry, I'm talking fast because I'm like, there's a lot.
You're off the clock right now, so it's okay.
Farmed in perpetuity. Thank you. Versus what land is imminently going to be developed outside of, so we have the designated, I'm quite familiar with that and that process. We have designated development land in various parts of the region, but speculators and investors have bought up land outside of that as well. And we need to understand that piece in order to understand better how development could be influenced or pressured, and whether or not that land is likely to stay farmed and cared for as farmland or not. And that doesn't, that's something that we need to be doing across the country, not just in Waterloo region, but, as a farmer, and I gotta tell you, I am so grateful for all those tractors. That was just, I don't know how to express to you how deeply visceral this is to each and every one of us. When we saw that corn cut down, it was like you took your boot and gut kicked us. That was horrible.
Are you done?
Yeah, so thanks for that. Thank you for that clarification. I think understanding who owns the different different sections of land and whether they're inside the original official plan or whether they're outside of the official plan. I think that's really important to understand. So thanks for raising that, and I'll just direct a question to staff via email around
Sorry, I
that.
just had one other clarification. There's also the piece about agricultural zoning, but not actually being farmed, because there are various uses such as aggregate extraction that are zoned agricultural but are not actually being farmed. So that enters the inventory as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Jen, you were not on the clock, but Dorothy was, so good answer. Thank you. Sarah, I'm sorry about the false start. You're welcome. The floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Chair. 820 friends and family have died here in Waterloo Region since 2018, with little to no action by this regional government. Today is the time to act. As if 2 people a week dying in our region wasn't enough, this week's announcement from the Ontario government is guaranteed to lead more deaths and cost our local emergency services hundreds of thousands of dollars. We know it's the province that is closing the CTS. However, you, Council, could decide to support an alternative safe space to CTS using a federal exemption. Waterloo Region residents year after year have called for a functional, community-led drug strategy that could implement the following initiatives. Immediately fund and scale up safe supply for people dependent on unregulated substances. Funding for very small program in Kitchener expires in the winter, this winter. Advocate for CTS services to stop Doug Ford from costing lives. If these CTSs close, it's going to cost lives. Immediately establish and provide support for overdose prevention sites via the Urgent Public Health Needs, a UPHNS. Exemptions provided by Health Canada 4 years ago for organizations where deaths are known to occur. Immediately end police attendance at overdose emergencies. It remains a barrier to calling 911 despite Canada's Good Samaritan Drug Overdose Act. 5, declare this public health emergency. Urgent assistance from the provincial and federal government are essential, but local municipalities are not powerless. It is budget season. Set aside resources and funds for organizations doing this work in preventing fatal overdoses. 820 friends and family have died here in Waterloo Region since 2018, with little to no action by this regional government. Today is the day to act. I would also like to add that we have had community show up tonight and stayed with us. Our community is leading with love tonight. They have followed the rules because we understand that we need to be heard. We are speaking for people that can no longer speak because they are dead. And so we need you to listen. We need you to act by advocating up. You are elected officials. It is your role and your duty, and we look forward to you going up and advocating for our community here in Region of Waterloo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I don't see any questions, so thank you very much. And it's great that you're here tonight. So colleagues, the next agenda item is minutes of previous meetings. I'd like a motion and a seconder, and this is 7.1 through 7.11. Moved by Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Williams. Please use your e-scribe to vote. Councillor Harris and Councillor Hunick, are you in favor? Oh, Councillor Hunick did? Councillor Harris, Michael, are you in favor? Thank you. Councillor Liggett? Colleagues, that is carried. The next agenda item is 8.1. It's communications package, which you have received electronically, noting that there were some late additions from John Ahrens, MCIP, RPP New Hamburg, and Cloris Olson, PhD Kitchener. That is all in your package. Are there any questions? Anybody like to raise any of the issues in that package? I now would entertain a motion to go into closed session, moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Wolf. Please use your e-scribe to vote, and we will be going into closed to consider a potential agreement for proposed disposition and acquisition of lands subject to solicitor-client privilege, provide direction to staff with respecting ongoing litigation, and providing direction regarding ongoing negotiations related to current service. Colleagues, that is carried, so we can now adjourn to the Waterloo room for the closed session of council. Just reminding everybody that we will continue with the balance of council when we come out of closed, as well as some agenda items we didn't cover off from the last council meeting from Finance and Administration.